In a world. What up, what up? Okay, super late. Dang, dude, almost 2 already. What up? Not ideal going live this late, obviously. But hey, it's not even 11 on the West Coast, right? Not going to be a super long stream, but I did want to get at least a stream off cuz it has been a long time. It's been many days. So, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Okay, we're going to cover a few topics. We'll be back streaming tomorrow night. Obviously, was not planned that I was gone for a few days. I had to travel and visit the girls this weekend. Daughter was really sick, and some unexpected occurrences. It is what it is. But for those that kind of know, just things happen. But anyway, we're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. Talk about the files. Yeah, that's what we're about to talk about. All right, so we're going to cover a few different topics tonight. So we got the CIA stills, the MK Ultra files, the next pandemic, race war, and AI dystopia. We're going to finish the final 30 minutes or so on Kick. So go ahead and pop over to kick.com/Witsit. Links in the description. You can pop it up in a different browser to help a brother out. And if you're going to chat, try and chat in the Kick chat. I'm going to try to prioritize Kick chats. I did see crazy generous gifts here. Julian Equity, 100 gifted on Kick. What a legend. 100 gifted. I don't know when you gifted that. You're not here right now, but shout out to you. Absolute legend. Crazy. I guess, I don't know who gets those. Maybe it's the last 100 that were in there. I'm not sure how that works. Did I gift that on a playback or something? I don't even know. So crazy. So shout out to them. All right. So let's jump into it because we're going to kind of run through it. Tomorrow night, we'll stream earlier and we'll stream all through the weekend. Cool. So, yeah, just a bit going on this week, trying to look into jobs. Anyway. Okay, let's just go ahead and check out the story here. No better than this CIA operative, Jesse Waters, or whatever his name is, to tell us about what the CIA supposedly did.
Tulsi Gabbard's office. Agents hauled out dozens of boxes, files on the JFK assassination and MK Ultra, the CIA mind control operation, which she was in the process of declassifying. Today's whistleblower said it during his deposition, and Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna confirmed it moments ago.
The reason why this is troubling is, A, there was an executive order that the president had directed the full declassification of JFK, but then also to the MK Ultra files. The CIA famously has said that, all documents were released and other documents had been destroyed. So these are allegedly those documents that apparently never existed.
Can the CIA overrule the president?
Yeah.
No, the CIA cannot overrule the president.
Wrong.
CIA cannot even overrule the Director of National Intelligence. In
Wrong.
1975, the Church Committee, which became the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence,
It's former CIA guy, by the way. He actually went to prison for whistleblowing.
Specifically ordered DCI William Colby to release all of the MK Ultra files. He famously went back to CIA headquarters and ordered that all of the files be destroyed. 85% of them were destroyed. He was held in contempt of Congress, and then CIA employees lined the halls and contributed cash to pay for the fine that he was ordered to pay. We only know what we know about MK Ultra because of the 15% of the files that weren't destroyed. These are among those 15% of the files. They are mandated to be declassified. The American people have a right to know what is in these files, and the CIA can't raid offices least of all the offices of the director of national intelligence. It's just real life isn't supposed to work this way. This is crazy.
This is something out of a movie, but the CIA was experimenting with LSD on willing and unwilling participants during the Cold War for intelligence operations and to exploit people. And it didn't go well a lot of the time. And they threw it all in a wastebasket, right? Like it never really worked. That
is the point here. That's how this guy works for the CIA. This Jesse guy works for the CIA. Like pretty much guaranteed, right? So you know what they're not going to tell you about? You know what they're not putting on the headlines? Operation Mockingbird. That's what they're not putting on the headlines.
Why they don't want anybody to know about it?
I think they don't want people to know any more than what we know about, for example, dosing innocent citizens of San Francisco, California, or a small village in France and putting LSD in the yeast at the only bakery in the village just to see if everybody in the village would go nuts, which they did, of course, or coming up with a program in San Francisco to hire prostitutes to dose Johns and see if they would cough up their innermost secrets. Ridiculous.
Okay, bro. You can't see what's going on. Don't worry, I got you. That's why you're here. Okay, official story is that they threw away almost all of the MK Ultra files. They trashed all of them except for 15%. Okay. Let's use a little critical thinking here. Do you think that the most damning, most pertinent documents were in that 15% that they saved or in the 85% that they threw away? If they went and got rid of a large portion of the files, they obviously got rid of all of the stuff they didn't want people to know, like the stuff that was really successful, the stuff that had information about current, celebrities, current political figures, current people that were under MK Ultra, the actual effective methodologies. Then they tactically, which is called a limited hangout, right? They give you selective groups of information to get out ahead of something or to manipulate the narrative about something that they can't prevent from coming out. And then they said, oh, see, look, yeah, we did some bad stuff, but it didn't even work. We trashed the program. Now you have this CIA op, Jesse, on Fox News talking about, and then it didn't even work, right? Always just like carrying water for the system because he works for the CIA, right? So obvious that dude is a liaison for the CIA through Operation Mockingbird, which is just everyday news now. That's what it is. You're never going to hear this guy talking about Operation Mockingbird. This isn't on the news for any other reason other than to run cover for it. The CIA doesn't just actually buck the system and go in there and steal it, and then we find out about it for no reason. This isn't how it works. Now, I will say, I do think there's infighting, right? I do think that like intel agencies fight. I think that intel agencies from different countries fight. I think that our CIA gets into it with the FBI, stuff like that. But the most important part of what we just watched here, right, is you have a CIA operative that works for the news via Operation Mockingbird. Yeah, I am going to go ahead and say that guy is CIA. I don't know that for 100%. Let's just say it's 90-10. 90-10, the Jesse guy is CIA. Okay. He's now got this CIA whistleblower on the news, which I think the guy like exposed some of the crimes from CIA. I will say some of his interviews are kind of interesting. He does expose a good amount, but he's very tactical with what he says. He's like, I can't cover that. I can't get into that. So he still like knows tons of classified information he's not revealing. I find it interesting. He goes to prison and then it's like he's not even really given a fair trial. They kept him in there, then he just gets released. I mean, I know one way that they would release him if he agreed to then go out and do damage control or to continue to be the CIA operative, right? So like what better way for the CIA to create a limited hangout than to have a former CIA guy claim to be a whistleblower go out and then start to kind of control the narratives where he acts like he's revealing certain information, but he's actually getting out ahead of it. Something else you have to understand, right, is there's the typical window of like 50 years. 50 years is when it's supposed to be, and then they delay that sometimes when stuff's just supposed to come out declassified automatically, right? So they're supposed to only be able to classify documents for really like 50 years. They got to file for, some type of exception otherwise. So the CIA was created, I want to say 40s. So you have like everything created in the 40s. So 40s, 50s, 60s, all the crazy stuff the CIA did in the first couple decades of their existence is supposed to start coming out right now. So they're getting out ahead of it. Okay. And the way that they control the operation or the like MK Ultra information, well, they destroyed it. And you think they really destroyed it? They just took it away from where it could be found or something, right? Let's just be real. CIA works in different countries. They didn't destroy the stuff that actually works. There's no way. So anyway, I just think it's so funny, right? This guy sitting here just breezes past the fact that they destroyed everything but 15% of the MK Ultra documents, and then proceeds to talk about the 15% as though we get the totality of the picture or something. Like, that's how stupid that they think the public is, which, to be honest, I guarantee you that works on a lot of people, right? So he just starts talking about it like, oh, and really it's like they used LSD and it didn't even really work, and they trashed the program. Dude, LSD is not the only thing that they did. They were working on different signals, different frequencies, different sounds, and different light input, different ambient input to manipulate and brainwash someone. Okay. They learned that they could trigger them with certain words, certain sounds. And so they could effectively train someone, and then they could say their trigger word, and it would cause that disassociative break into the alternative personality that would then carry out a task. They could train someone to be an assassin, etc. And if you really look into this, we've started to really figure out a lot about this. If you look into psychotherapy, which I actually ironically have a lot for the last year, kind of obsessively, it's like there's so much propaganda, right? And you have like the Freudian thought, right? Which he was just a psycho, right? And then everything's bogged down within that. And so you have a bunch of archaic understandings of like personality disorders, what we call MPD, PPD, all these things, right? But if you actually look into the proper understanding and what the actual psychoanalytic data shows us is that it comes from childhood trauma typically, right? And what happens as a child is you begin to experience a trauma that is so intense you can't handle. This is all relevant. Stay with me, okay? So you just experience a trauma that's so intense that you don't know how to handle it, right? So it's like, say that you really love your dad, but your dad starts being really mean to you or doesn't care about you, and you feel like misunderstood, ignored, you feel like he's apathetic, he doesn't love you back, whatever. As a little girl, for example, that's so painful, right? Because just that's half of you. Your mom's half of you, your dad's half of you. You just love your dad. You want his love and affection and validation and attention so much innately, intuitively, right? On such a deep level that when you feel rejected by him and you don't get that love, it hurts on such a deep emotional, like subconscious level that the child disassociates. It's too much. They're not old enough to work through intense emotions like that. So their brain literally splits off, it disassociates, and it creates a new reality, right? Where they're able to handle it. And they begin to create a new personality to cope with that. And that's when you'll start to see children start to be mean. Oh, he's going to be mean to me. I'm going to be mean to other people. Oh, I feel hurt. I'm going to hurt other people. They'll start being mean to other kids. They'll start lashing out, right? They'll start becoming like hyper independent. They'll start doing things for attention, right? They're always going to start acting out and lashing out and just trying to get attention because they feel like they're not seen, they're not heard, whatever. Okay, so not to go too far into that, but that's like overwhelmingly what actually causes these personality disorders. Like these archaic ideas that they're genetic and all this is just totally debunked with the actual data. You can have genetic predispositions, and I would say it's probably generational curses, right? But it's actually environmental. It's a disassociative reaction. So the CIA just utilized this and wanted to see how they could cause adults to do that. Now, if you want to get into the really crazy part of all this, you start to see these crazy occultic elite groups, right? And they're harming children. They're causing children to have disassociative breaks. They're basically doing MK Ultra on steroids to children when it's much more effective. And if you look into people like Nathan Reynolds, Snatch from the Flames, right? That's my homie. He's a legend. He's a flat earther as well. If you look into his story, his experience, he comes from one of these really wealthy families. like the Reynolds family. And he kind of tells his story where he was forced to do insane things, to see insanely traumatic things, and that they basically have a belief that you have to get them before they're 7, right, in the formative years up to 7, and that they would train them where they could snap over with a certain word, a certain phrase, a certain input that would cause them to then be this other person they could have children being. And that gets really dark. Assassins and snuff films and all kinds of stuff. Okay. So that's why the elite are so obsessed with children. And that's why it's so evil, right? You're manipulating the innocence of a child. Like, manipulating children is got to be like the most evil thing ever, right? Like, harming a child and abusing the innocence of a child. I mean, and that's why I'd say that the scriptures say that it's better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you be thrown to the depths of the sea, right? Because if you have children, if you've ever seen children, if you interact with children, they're just so innocent and beautiful and pure, right? Okay, so the point is that the CIA, they just utilize this same phenomena that happens, because even as an adult, right, what happens when you start to experience something that's too much to bear, you disassociate. Like when you see people lose a loved one, right, that's unexpectedly, like sometimes the grief will be so much that they like disassociate to cope with it. So let's just put 2 and 2 together here. I mean, what they were doing more than likely is traumatizing these people. So showing them all kinds of like images and sounds that would put them in a heightened, frightened state. So the LSD would obviously amplify that tenfold. You got people taking LSD and tripping, they're going to be freaking out. It's very easy to scare them. And then their brain's going to get into a state of mind where it can basically be rewired. What's also interesting is pain does the same thing. Like when a woman gives birth, the pain threshold, right, is surpassed. And once you reach a certain pain threshold, your brain literally rewires. This is the same thing that happens with your wisdom teeth. So that's why they're called wisdom teeth, because people actually would show higher levels of wisdom after those teeth would come in. And the reason that actually happened is because when the teeth come in, the pain threshold is surpassed, and it causes your brain to literally rewire, right? This is a well-known proven fact that your brain rewires itself when a certain pain limit is reached, and wisdom teeth, childbearing, stuff like that. So they could have also tortured these people and caused them to go through immense amounts of pain. And then what they would do is just guide that disassociative reaction, right? And then tie it to a word, a phrase, a type of song, a sound, whatever. Okay. And so this is where you get like a lot of the typical stories where basically they'll just say a word to you, pineapple, whatever it is. And they'll say the word, and then it'll trigger now they're assassin, whatever. Okay. Now, the part that is kind of interesting here about this is that they're coming out bringing attention to MK Ultra. And so you would think maybe it's like the whole assassination attempts thing, or is it prepping for something in the future? It's just really interesting, right? Like, 'cause you obviously have the one take of like, well, the documents are technically supposed to come out anyway, and so they're getting out ahead of it with a limited hangout, and they're using their CIA operatives, literally 2 CIA operatives right here, right? I mean, this guy, not openly, but like, come on, bro. Come on. This is the guy I predicted with CIA multiple times already, because he just does everything a CIA operative would do. And look, don't take my word for it, man. Like, and it's always the same thing, right? They just think about how goofy that is. All of this like declassification stuff, it's just a show. The CIA just goes in and destroys everything that they don't want you to see anyway. Okay, so consider watching on Kick. Show our brother some love. I'm prioritizing the Kick chats. Oh, Mo Ping Pong 05. Shout out to you for the 10 gifted. Much love, man. Very generous, very generous. Thank you, brother. All right, let's read this a little bit. Operation Mockingbird is an alleged large-scale program of the United States CIA that began in the early years of the Cold War and attempted to manipulate domestic American news media organizations for propaganda purposes. In 1973, a document referred to as the Family Jewels was published by the CIA, containing a reference to a different operation called Project Mockingbird, which was the name of an operation in 1963, which wiretapped 2 syndicated columnists. They had published articles. You see how everyone just carries water, dude. recruited leading American journalists into a propaganda network and influenced the operations of front groups. CIA support of front groups was exposed when an April 1970 Ramparts article reported the NSA received funding from the NIA. The CIA. Okay, now watch this. So
people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal.
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, the ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
Senator, do you think that you named the news organizations in your final report?
I bet you would, brother.
News services, AP and UPI.
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
Senator, do you think that you named the news organizations in your final report?
That remains to be decided.
I think it was entirely in order for our correspondents at that time to make use of CIA agent chiefs of station and other members of the executive staff of CIA as sources of information which were useful in their assessments of...
Shut up. And I mean, brother. If you got to be told that when they come out and give you official answers that they're BS, then like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But I played that video because when he's asked point blank, right, do you currently have CIA operatives inside the news agencies? He said, I think we're getting to the territory where we need to have these conversations behind closed doors. So refuses to answer because we obviously know the answer. There's only one reason you wouldn't answer that, right? Well, no, technically he could have been just not wanting to say no because then people... No, that's stupid. Shut up. So this is the thing, right? They claim that that was this limited thing because of the Cold War and the official documents, official stances that they were just trying to contact them or wiretap them or whatever. But again, right, they refuse to show all the real documents. And then when they were straight up asked, do you have them in the news right now, they said they refused to answer, said they wanted to go behind closed doors. Now, since then, more information has come out that there were, in fact, liaisons all throughout different layers of the news. Okay, so do you think that happened in the 70s and in 2026, the CIA isn't controlling the facilitation of propaganda through mainstream news networks? Can we be real here? Can we be real? So this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, now obviously you're never going to have this. If you're one of the people that need the CIA to come out and tell you which news anchor works for the CIA, or you're going to pretend that there isn't any, then it's like, okay, brother, I don't care. You know, that this channel is not for people that just stick their head in the sand. Okay.
Agents hauled out dozens of boxes.
This goober right here works for the CIA. Okay. Allegedly.
Files on the...
But they're not going to sue me. So not allegedly. Probably. Probabilistically. Very likely so. Bro works for the CIA. Okay.
The JFK assassination and MK Ultra, the CIA mind control operation.
It's just funny because anyway, so anyway, we covered that. Okay, so this official story came out that they raided her office. The CIA raided their office, took a bunch of the MK Ultra files that were set to be declassified, and it's just funny, dude. If the 15% are so damning that are still there, then what the hell was in the other 85%? If this was decades ago, what the hell are they doing right now? And so they're trying to give us this official story, which is like, oh, the big boogeyman CIA came and took it. We wanted to be transparent. The whole be transparent about it is out the window when you destroy 85% of the documents. And then the official story comes from our little goober CIA operative right here named Jesse, who's letting us know there's nothing to worry about. It's really just like a nothing burger. And it was not successful. They used some LSD and then it didn't really work. And then they just went ahead and trashed the whole program. Oh, the CIA that made sure to fight to keep it classified and threw away 85% of it definitely is telling the truth when they said that they just trashed the whole program and there's nothing to see here. What's so crazy is what is inside the 15% is still damning. Like they kind of covered some of the stuff where they were literally facilitating LSD like in water systems, like city water systems, and different food, like on unsuspecting college students, all kinds of stuff. Right, all kinds of stuff. They were just like drugging the public to see the reaction and then facilitating propaganda to them, right, in the form of radio, in the form of like flyers, to see how susceptible they were to propaganda. That's pretty crazy, right? Now, even more than that, because like, you just get a better, like you get a test study that's much broader, right, when you just use the general public like that. But anyway, what they're really doing is they found a way to master people, like to brainwash someone and to be able to utilize them for something, right? So what's crazy is when you get into like SSRIs and psychotropic drugs, right? And like that being a major variable with all of these like mass shootings and assassination attempts, it's like basically seemingly the effects that of LSD that allowed them to successfully brainwash people are just in the SSRIs or psychotropic drugs, whatever it is. It creates a mental state where they're able to manipulate these people. And so it's like when we look through their history, they're always in like Blackstone commercials. They have sketchy connections, right? Which is what a coincidence, right? Every time. So the problem with this world is that it's intrinsically limited to speculation. Like a speculation station. We're talking about operations from intel agencies. And so it's like, I'm not claiming to know that any of these theorized or proposed conclusions are fact, but what is super goofy is to act like to be the person that runs around like poo-pooing on it because there isn't like an official document from the source that's lying to you about how it's real. All right, so let's see what else we got with this here.
That you'd like to share?
Yeah, so we were actually just notified that the CIA went in and took documents out of ODNI, multiple boxes pertaining to the JFK files as well as MK Ultra. The reason why this is troubling is A, there was an executive order that the president had directed the full declassification of JFK, but then also to the MK Ultra files. The CIA famously has said that, all documents were released and other documents had been destroyed. So these are allegedly those documents that apparently never existed. And so very troubling. I did just talk to Chairman Comer, and we are sending in the next hour or so a preservation of documents request to the CIA. I have calls into the White House to the director of the CIA himself. And so obviously, as this develops, we'll keep everyone up to date. But strange times we're living in.
Well, yeah, strange times where you're considered like the based one.
To understand why analytical standards at the CIA were violated. The CIA illegally monitored the computer and phone usage of DIG personnel, their investigations, and contact with whistleblowers. These were Americans being spied upon illegally while executing duties directed by the president and under the authority of
Wait, aren't we all being spied on illegally?
Director of National Intelligence. One CIA contractor assisting with the Diggs investigation into the events that transpired between 2022 and 2023, was fired by the CIA one day after being...
Like, there's just no way. There's not an ounce of me. An obvious motivation for this coming out would be like trying to win back the public sentiment to think that Trump's administration is actually bucking the system, is actually like promoting transparency. Guys, Trump's administration literally fought to prevent the release of the Epstein files. They then were ordered to do so because the Democrats demanded that they did it. And then they only released 3 million of the 6 million, and they were supposed to have nothing redacted but the victims, and they still redacted all the perpetrators that were in the 3 million. Same thing. If they destroyed 85% of the MK Ultra documents, do you think the most damning part was in the part they kept and let people see, or the parts that they destroyed? Do you think the most damning parts of the Epstein files are in the 3 million documents they gave you that was still redacted, or the 3 million that they didn't let you see, right? It's like same with JFK files. They didn't even release them all. Still, after claiming they were just now releasing them all, they still didn't. So the real question here is, why are those files still on this lady's desk? Why is it supposedly that the CIA can go in there and grab them anyway? It should be very simple. Supposedly, we have nothing to hide. We're being fully transparent. You go get the files, you then release the files. You can release them all. The internet is crazy nowadays. X would run through those files in a day. You can go to jmail.world and you can go through a mock-up Gmail and read every single one of Jeffrey Epstein's emails. You can, like, as though you're on his Gmail. You can go to all of his flight records, all of his pictures, all of his videos. And if you don't know about that, jmail.world. This is the kind of stuff the internet does, right? You can go through everything and you can just search like Trump. So everywhere Trump is in the files. And this is fire, right? Starred, unredacted requests. And then you come down here, you got photos, JDrive, JCal. So pretty cool. So it's like, just release all of it, bulk release it. The internet's going to go through it immediately. It's like just like how the internet solves crimes immediately. Just like the David rapper guy, the singer guy who clearly killed the girl that was like 11 when he met, and then 12 when he started talking to, and 13 when he had sex with, and then she threatened to expose him, and then he killed her and cut her up and put her in a allegedly, but clearly. And then he's making songs about her and dropping songs on his birthday. Like, the internet within a couple of days went through everything, found the Discord messages, the deleted user, the references, the matching tattoos, like the fact he was dropping on her birthday. And then it took 7 months for, the government to go arrest the guy. The government's super incompetent, but when stuff is open source, stuff gets done. So if you were actually in, trying to be transparent and trying to be honest, then you would just release everything. But anyway, my point is, they can try to spin this as like, oh, the reason it didn't come out is because the big, bad, corrupt CIA, because they're trying to hamstring Trump all along the way. And Trump's administration actually is trying to get the truth out there. Clearly, they're not, or they would have just released it. The fact that those files are still there is a joke, right? And like, we've already solved most of the JFK files. Like, it's like the most that we could have got in like this utopian world where they actually care about you finding out the truth and want to be transparent was like a couple little pieces that we just simply don't have access to that would show, sure enough, the mob was involved, Israel was involved, the CIA was involved, right? So anyway,
So the CIA has raided Tulsi Gabbard's office and seized 40 boxes JFK files, MK Ultra files, and just took them back. Yeah, that's what they're reporting, but it wasn't really a raid. No, the CIA just walked into Tulsi Gabbard's office and seized 40 boxes worth of files that Trump had, with the executive order, ordered to be declassified. And Tulsi was going through those, and the CIA said, no, fuck you. We run this shit, and this shit did not just happen. This came out in the CIA whistleblower's testimony yesterday and is now confirmed. And this didn't happen days ago. This could have happened weeks ago. Nobody knows when this even happened. So that's even more fucked up, because that means the CIA walked into the Director of National Intelligence office where they were declassifying the documents to be released, and they just took 40.
And then why are we just finding out about it from a whistleblower in Congress? Why didn't they immediately come out and say something about it? If this administration is so good and the CIA is so corrupt, you know, it's like, nah, it's just a cover story, bro. And a lot of people are like, dude, if you're saying they're so corrupt, then why do you talk about declassified documents? Because they have to actually document things, right? Because that's how they keep track of everything. You think that they're just running a bunch of tests and they keep no documentation? Of course they document things. And the way that the government works, it isn't like a bunch of 180 IQ geniuses that never slip up. It isn't like an incredibly well-oiled machine. Everything the government does is incompetent and inept, right? And the bigger it gets, the more incompetent that it gets. So things seep through the cracks. They make mistakes. It's just the way that it works. Just the way that it works. So, like, yes, declassification is actually important. It is where you start to get the truth. When the government tries to prevent you from knowing something, and you only see it 50 years later when no one really cares, it's like, yeah, if you've actually spent the time to go read through declassified documents, you're like, oh, this verifies everything we independently found out and verified. Sure enough, they knew the whole time. So yeah, it's not that I just read declassified documents as though everything in them are true, right? It's just that they are extremely valuable, right? And when the government's admitting something and then trying to prevent you from knowing that they admitted it and reluctantly doing so and trying to do so under the radar and they're still trying to redact and hide parts of it, bro, like, let's just be real.
And they were like, no, fuck you, we run the show here. And they just took that shit and they were like, you can't see that.
Bro, you really, like, do you have to cuss every other word though?
That shit. And no one
weak words
said a fucking word. Nobody said anything. Like, how does nobody say anything? And it takes a whistleblower coming out to say this shit? What the fuck, dude? This is what happens when you don't arrest the deep state. That's what should have happened here. And all the same people that have been fucking this country for 50 fucking years.
All right, I can't do it. I mean, you just can't speak without cussing. You have that bad of a vocab, bro. Like, I normally kind of like the guy, but anyway. You're not really giving us good input if you're just saying, this is so corrupt, and then dropping an F-bomb every 20 seconds. 5 seconds. Opong, thanks for the gifted again. All right. So as we reported yesterday on our show, approximately 1 hour following the White House Correspondents' Center shooting, the White House military office sent an email directing the amplification of Eric Kirk's "I Want to Go Home" video clip. Unfortunately, the email was sent to the wrong internal groups. They then attempted to have IT revoke the email. When that failed, they ordered every person to destroy the email. I've manually retyped the relevant portion of the email that they wanted destroyed. As explained on my show yesterday, that is because the DoD's IT department has imprinted the email with canary tactics to identify individual tasks. So the question now is, why did the military so quickly prioritize making Erica Kirk the face of the White House Correspondents' Center shooting? Is that normal emergency protocol, or was this unnaturally pre-planned? Here we go. Addendum, Erica Kirk video clip, video of Erica Kirk leaving the ballroom area and stating, "I just want to go home," is driving the highest engagement of all incident-related content across platforms. Current digital assessment, strong emotional response, high cross-ideological circulation, elevated repost velocity, increasing use of symbolic framing device. Regarding media conduct and national stability narratives, recommendation: all communication channels should amplify this clip, coordinate with our digital partners, and approve surrogates to elevate reach and ensure dominant placement in the overnight information environment. Most viral engagement. This is weird. External commentary. Expect aligned outside commentators to independently amplify. So yeah, that is weird, right? Because, I mean, we kind of covered that shooting and, like, bro, like, the motivation is cut and dry, right? Like, dude's trying to build his ballroom, right? And then they're building the military complex underneath it with all the major funding from the people that are building the AI surveillance system that they're clearly ushering in right around you. We're about to cover some of that as well. And so you have like Palantir and Meta and, you know, Lockheed Martin and all these people funding this military complex under the ballroom, which just so happens to have a blueprint eerily similar to Solomon's Temple. And Trump's talking about how much he loves his gold and the bulletproof windows and blah, 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 blah. And so he really couldn't do it. And the courts are like, nah, you can't do that. You can't just like walk in and then act like it's Trump Tower and build everything. It needs to be some type of legitimate security issue. And so they really couldn't show any type of security issue. The military complex underneath was approved because that makes sense for some type of increased security. So what do you know? There all of a sudden there's this, assassination attempt where the guy doesn't even shoot a shot, and then a 5-shot shot, but he doesn't get hit. But then another serviceman gets hit with friendly fire, but somehow they still subdued the guy, even though he doesn't get shot. And then he was talking to some officer with a K9 unit right before that, and he's just walking around and no one's being screened. It's just the goofiest thing I've ever seen, right? And then first thing Trump's talking about is his ballroom and how this is why we need the ballroom. And now you have all of the, conservative talking heads then immediately tweeting out, we need the ballroom. This is why we need the ballroom. Good thing that we're getting a ballroom. This is why we need security at the ballroom, right? So anyway, super sketchy. That entire situation is super suspect. The guy puts out like a weird little manifesto. So we covered that a few streams back, but this makes it even more sketchy. So I thought it was worth throwing in there real fast. Like, why do they want to amplify her doing that? I don't know. Anyway, let's look into, if you guys have not heard, there's like AI data centers getting put up everywhere, and they're like, some of them are like the size of a small state. They're absolutely huge. They use all the water in the surrounding area and pollute it. It's like insane. It's super dystopian. And then it's like all the property value around those areas are just going to plummet because it's like a train that never stops going, because obviously the computing and processing demands. And this is why like the true gold of the future is electricity, which, I mean, everyone could have told you this a long time ago, like even Bitcoin and everything, it's all about electricity. You understand though why they can't tell you the truth about the ether, right? They can't tell you the truth about how the fact that everything's in ether modality. Everything that exists is a different version of ether, electricity, light, magnetism, static electricity, all different modalities or versions of the same thing, that there's an endless ocean of energy all around you, which Nikola Tesla knew, the guy responsible for our current electrical grid. And he only made the AC generator because he was asked to. And he's like, okay, I guess I will. And this is pretty primitive. And then the person that you don't know about, like Charles Proto Steinmetz, comes in and perfects it. But Tesla's really just trying to work on basically free infinite energy for everyone with his Wardenclyffe tower, which just takes energy out of the ambient energy out of the environment, out of the air. And so this is actually us pulling from the ether, which works like a will and pulley system. It's just like an infinite fluid ocean, right? And when they're in the infinitesimal prodigious worlds of velocity becomes matter, then when that energy resides, it reverts back into the ether. Everything from matter to light to energy, it's all ether, right? They've known this for a long time. There's no way that the government doesn't know this. The Nazis, we now have documentation from the Nazis where they extensively documented this, and how ether physics is the true physics, and that relativistic physics is just, they called it Jewish mysticism and they outlawed it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, but they were racists, It's like, well, they were then very successful with things like UFOs, etc., utilizing ether physics. But we won't go into all that. But dude, long story short, and one of my most requested streams that I do again is my presentation on atomism versus ether, the only two frameworks ever. But atomism is the one that everyone believes in, the materialistic reductionist view that everything's made up of like these little bouncing balls everywhere, little atoms, right? Which conveniently were put together or put forth and proposed by a Greek philosopher, Democritus, a long time ago, who was a crazy person. He was a crazy person who just so happened to say that everything is made of these little indivisible balls, and atom means basically indivisible, right? And it can get no smaller. And they end up saying they're subatomic particles because they saw all kinds of little vortices underneath that, et cetera, et cetera. And they try to call those little balls. The thing is that if you're a materialist and you think there's nothing outside the material world, then you have to just claim everything is matter. So then you have to say, well, then it's made up of little bitty pieces of matter on the smallest scale. Right. And so basically they believe there's this cult of bombarding particles. Everything is bouncing everywhere. And that's just not reality. It's just simply not reality. Right. And then I go through all the many reasons why it simply isn't viable. Right. The atom that they claim is 99.99999% empty space sounds legit. And then the electron, which is like a fraction of that, like 1/100 millionth or something, and they can't actually find it, but it's there, but it's not there. So they use a probability distribution, a cloud distribution equation to say it's probably in this area, and this is the percentage that it will be in this area at this given time. But anytime we try to go look at it, it's not there. Okay, like when do you start to put together that this is BS, right? So anyway, I won't get too off the rails here, but the point is that understanding this, and this all goes back to the fact that the Earth is actually the center of the universe and not moving, right? And you get into Michelson-Morley and actually doing the test and then finding out that the Earth is not moving, and then to keep the belief that the Earth is moving around the sun, they had to propose relativity and claim that space expands, that the measuring apparatus got contracted but looked like it was the same size. You just can't tell. It's actually smaller, but looks exactly the same size. And if you go to measure it, it's going to measure as exactly the same size, but it actually got smaller. Trust me, bro. And simultaneously, just coincidentally, time also stretched out. What does that even mean? Time stretched out. It's stretched out and then slowed down the exact amount that matches how much the apparatus contracted. And both of those contracted and stretched out and slowed down the perfect, precise amount needed to make it look like the Earth wasn't moving anymore. It's like so stupid. It's so stupid. But that's where this all came from. To keep the belief that the Earth is moving around the sun, they had to throw out the ether and then come up with a bunch of excuses and mental gymnastics to try to claim that even though there's no test that ever be done that can show that the Earth is moving, you can't actually detect it or measure it ever on Earth with any test, even optical tests using light, the most precise form of measurement known to man. Just trust me, bro. We are moving. We're free falling in a straight path that's also curved. You just can never tell. It's like, all right, bro, cool story. So look, we're not covering that right now, so take it or leave it. I'm just letting you know the Earth doesn't move. It's the center of the entire universe. Everything moves around it. There's an ether. This has been known for a super long time. And of course, it was suppressed and hidden. So what that turns into is like some type of nonsense propaganda that's given to the world, right? To the masses to brainwash them. And it's this idea that we're this tiny speck of dust in this ever-expanding universe of nothingness tucked away in this insignificant corner, and we're free falling through an infinite vacuum, and that everything is made of matter, and space and time bend and warp and all this stuff, right? And there is no ether, and so electricity is just like little bitty balls moving in a line and blah 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 blah. Okay, this is so important. You have to understand. People wonder, like, out of all the stuff that's covered, why do people talk about some of the most heinous stuff in the world and they're not censored? They're even promoted and amplified. But then people that are over here just talking about cosmology, and specifically the people that talk about it in any type of articulate way that actually can back up what they're saying with sources that actually have a grasp of the topics, why are they so heavily censored? Why would Austin be getting debanked? Well, because it's just like one of the most important topics in the world. Like, they can't really afford for that to become like common knowledge, right? Like, that would... Dude, it is the gold of the future. Like, the way that the current system set up is electricity is the most valuable thing in the world, and the scarcity of electricity is what is making people billions and billions of dollars. So if there's some type of world, some type of dynamic or scenario where everyone just can't run out of electricity, it's everywhere, that changes a lot. I mean, really, it also decimates Bitcoin. Right? I mean, what happens to Bitcoin whenever you can mine it for free? So anyway, I know that was a bit of a side tangent. Okay, so I'm just saying that is a truth. That's a piece of information that could free us from this dystopia. People are like, why even talk about it? And maybe you can argue it's a futile pursuit, destined to oblivion. But it's got to be worth a try, right? I mean, if truth is truth, truth's important. You got to speak truth, right? So instead, we're building gigantic buildings that are using the archaic, methodologies of electricity. And to me, it's just so dystopian to have gigantic buildings. I mean, I guess there's a ton of land in the United States, you would really never see it. And you could just drive through Nebraska and not see anything for hours. But it's like, it's still just kind of weird. I mean, check it out.
The AI data centers in America have already become hugely unpopular. The noise pollution from their cooling systems reach up to 100 decibels and run nonstop. They are drawing down aquifers in areas that are already in short supply, turning the water brown and tainting it with a disinfectant smell. And there is no benefit to the local community. A U.S. Chamber of Commerce report found that each data center provides about 157 jobs. Because of all this, developers have been using non-disclosure agreements with local officials, and projects are announced only weeks before voting for approval. There are now nearly 200 active opposition groups across the United States, and it's growing fast. The official story is that the US needs to stay competitive to beat China in an artificial intelligence arms race. But that story does not add up. The United States has already built over 4,000 data centers. China ranks at number 4 with 368. What they appear to be is the infrastructure for a new financial system, one that includes mass surveillance and autonomous weapons systems to protect it. The US dollar system is quickly collapsing, which would devastate the entire world economy. The only solution being played out is the AI agentic economy, which requires a massive amount of computing power. This new AI agentic system will be run by autonomous software entities that can own wallets, earn and spend money, create contracts, and transact with each other without human intermediaries. This addresses the debt problem by growing the economy faster than the debt accumulates. Like the petrodollar, it extends US dollar hegemony without fixing its core issue, the debt. The Bank for International Settlements is the bank for central banks. It is immune from any national law, and its employees have diplomatic immunity. It answers to no government on earth, and every central bank is a member. BRICS only appears to be in opposition to Western banking. It is not. BRICS is aligned with the rest of the world in adopting this new AI digital banking system. But a growing number of analysts agree that this is a temporary fix. After about 10 years, the consumption of resources, the displacement of human workers, and the massive transfer of wealth to the few who own these AI agents makes a fundamental restructuring unavoidable. And yet, the entire world is going along with this plan. The question is, why? As we covered in last week's video, the New World Order, the emerging unipolar world is preparing for a major geological event that is expected to be catastrophic for the United States and beneficial to Russia. In the United States, data centers are being built inland and on elevated land, away from the coastlines. This is where all vital US infrastructure is being moved, and is where billionaires are buying up acres by the millions. China is building their data centers inland and high above sea level, over 1,200 kilometers from their main user bases, who have been complaining about latency and security. China has also built ready-to-occupy ghost cities at high elevation, deep inland, and on geologically stable platforms. And they are now using economic incentives to move its population into these cities and away from the coast. Russia's official government plan explicitly states the opening up of new land for agriculture and easier transportation of goods in the Arctic as positive effects of an expected pole shift. They are spending billions preparing for it. They have passed dozens of new laws aimed at stimulating economic growth and encouraging migration to the Arctic, including free land grants, subsidized mortgages, and other social benefits for those who make the move. Russian scientists have concluded that 13 million square kilometers of currently frozen territory will soon thaw and become the center of Russian civilization and a land of great opportunity. Russia is not frantically building data centers. They are passing homesteading laws and preparing for a windfall of new landmass. The expected catastrophic geological event is the most elegant explanation for all the chaos happening on Earth today. It explains just about everything. The real mystery is this: what exactly is causing it, and how do the most powerful people on Earth know about it? Greg Reese reporting.
Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
I would think, since you disagree with the Chinese way of life, which is pretty civilized in a lot of ways, but the one way in which it's barbaric is that it grants its citizens no real rights. And so I would think that you would be very worried about aping their system, which we are now doing. They have total surveillance. It's panopticon in China. We should create our own. Let's take 40,000 acres in Utah and make it possible for the government to know where you are at all times and what you're thinking, listening to you on your phone. Like, we have that.
You have to choose the less of two evils in your scenario. And I'm telling you, what you should do is say, I want Kevin O'Leary to succeed. I want him to beat the Chinese in compute power. Then use the laws of the United States to make sure that you keep that compute power in check. To not have it available, to put down my shovel. I don't think people want me to do that. Even the people in Box Elder, the majority of them want me to hold my shovel and start digging.
There was a referendum among citizens?
3-0. The commissioners of the county said, we want to be
three people voted. The people of the county.
They're elected officials. That's how you do it.
How hard is it for Kevin O'Leary and Amazon and Microsoft and Google to subvert 3 county commissioners in rural Utah?
They asked us to come. They asked us to bring $15 billion. There's no other way to do
Google, and Kevin O'Leary got 3 county commissioners in rural Utah on their side. Good work.
What a clown world.
It's going to impact their lives. High-powered artificial intelligence centers all across the United States. That's what's happening. But the question is, to what end? Okay, what is the actual goal? It's obviously evil and dystopian. If you're not aware of that, you have to wake up to it, okay? The aim, to me, appears very clearly to be a surveillance state. Like I said,
I think it's much more sinister than that. We're about to get into it. By the way, we're about to move over to X because we're going to cover the whole situation with Chud the Builder and kind of the race war that's kind of stoking there. And obviously, I'm just going to give my take and obviously tell people that we should not participate in a race war because it's incredibly primitive, low IQ, and ridiculous.
They want what China has. They want to monitor all of us. You're seeing that already at the airport, right? How many pictures can be taken, that they're trying to learn your face. Every single person needs to have a digital ID and this ID, and we can know every second where you're going. That's going to require some data centers. There is an unholy alliance between the military and our press trying to convince us that this is fine, that it's normal.
The CIA runs the press.
That we're being thrust into a state where...
Well, why are you not pointing out that I mean, I'm sure you've said it, but like, it should just never be stated as though they're like truly independently operating entities. Like,
we won't even be able to turn on our cars without government approval, right?
Yeah, 2026, all cars made after that, there's literally just going to be an AI in there surveilling you.
They already can shut down a large portion of cars automatically, the newer ones. They can just literally, while you're driving, shut that down. But they want more. They want to know where you are every second of every day, what you're thinking, what you're writing, who you're speaking to. Listen to this conversation.
Okay, so we're going to do this after we do this. What's crazy is like I was about to kind of just give my take that's similar to what that title says. My ministers will also proceed. I mean, this feels like I'm actually being trolled. It's like, you know, when you read Revelation and you talk and it says stuff about like a king wearing like purple, and then you're like, there's actually like a goober dressed like it's 1300 and we're in the medieval. What is this dude doing? This dude's actually sitting here with a bunch of creepy occultic symbols, probably some naked baby somewhere out of frame, like he just got through eating some babies, looking 473 with his stupid gay little coat on, like he thinks he's some special boy, about to just casually bring up.
My ministers will also proceed with the introduction of digital ID that will modernize how citizens interact with public services.
Never wanted to see a more punchable face. We're just gonna roll out digital ID in order to use public services. What the hell? All right, I know people don't love this guy, but I just see this title and it's basically what I was about to pitch to you guys. So we'll see what this guy says and then I'll get my take.
My God, okay? It's a Stargate. These data centers.
Brother, what are you doing to me? What are you doing to me, bro? Although, hey, you know, Stargate, people hear that, they think like, oh, aliens from extragalactic air, blah, blah, blah. It's got to be fake. What are stars? What are stars? You know, seems like they're entities. Seem like some of them rebelled, came down here. All of the supposed gods from back in the day that came down and intermingled with the daughters of men who then made giants. They supposedly looked like stars and they came down and landed, some on Mount Hermon, some in the ocean, came up out the ocean, taught them out. I'm just saying, you know, it may be gates for the stars. It may be how they pop up over here. I don't really know. I don't know. I throw such a major asterisk beside anything called a Stargate, though. So much propaganda there. But
first, AI, it's designed to summon demons and aliens from the other dimensions. Okay, keep on going.
A former OpenAI executive said the portals currently exist in the United States and China.
I told you guys, China and the United States are working together on this, okay? Keep on going.
And Sam has added one in the Middle East. He went on, I think it's just like widely important to get how scary that should be. It's the most reckless things that happen.
Bro, do I have, bro? What do I say here? You know, no, thank you, brother. Can I read it? Let me see if I can read it. Okay, let's see. In May, the administration rescinded Biden's export restrictions on AI technology. Altman and Trump traveled to the Saudi royal court to meet with bin Salman. I can barely see these words. Around the same time, the Saudis advertised the launch of a giant state-backed AI firm in the kingdom with billions to spend on international partnerships. About a week later, Altman laid out a plan for Stargate to expand into the UAE. The company plans to build a data center campus. Oh, is that the name of it? Stargate, like the big AI thing? I think so, right? Yeah, that's right. The big like AI partnership with like $5 billion allotted as soon as Trump got into office was called Stargate, I think, right? Build a data center campus in Abu Dhabi, which is 7 times larger than Central Park and consumes roughly as much electrical power as the city of Miami. The truth of this is we're building portals from which we're genuinely summoning aliens, a former OpenAI executive said. The portals currently exist in the United States and China, and Sam has added one in the Middle East. He went on, I think it's just like wildly important to get how scary that should be. It's the most reckless thing that has been done. It sounds pretty CERN-esque. That's pretty crazy.
That's been done.
Okay, this is it. Okay, this is not a science project, guys. It's an occult project.
That's great. So that's basically, I guess, a whistleblower from OpenAI saying that they're basically building portals to summon aliens, and they have some in the China and the U.S. operating right now, and they just opened up another one in the Middle East. Pretty crazy.
It's designed to bring aliens, demons into this world, and then you're like, this makes no sense.
Aliens, demons are disembodied spirits. They're already in this world. They're disembodied spirits from the Nephilim because they have nowhere to go. They used to have a body. That's why they're disembodied. That's why they actually inhabit other bodies and people get possessed. The more accurate terminology would be like the Watchers, the rebellious ones, the fallen angels, those that were chained up, right? They do seemingly get out, and they seem to have been like chained up at different times. So they would get out a little bit at different times. Yeah.
Actually, it does make sense, okay? Let me tell you how this works. All right. So, what's going on here? These people are cultists. They understand the fundamental nature of reality. They understand that the source of reality is human consciousness. So if you're able to control human consciousness, you become God itself, okay? So, Allegory of the Cave, Plato. Okay, so we talked about this before, but I'll remind you. You have 1 million people who are chained in a line. They are forced to look forward at a wall, okay? A wall. And they can only look at the wall. They can't turn their heads because their necks are shackled. Behind them is a great fire. And behind them are the elite, okay? Who they are, we don't know. And what they like to do is they like to take puppets, okay? And then reflect these puppets onto the wall, projecting from the fire. So what everyone sees in front of them are shadows. Now, these shadows are nothing. They don't exist. They don't matter. But because we have an imagination, we have intuition, we are conscious, we see these shadows on the wall and we turn them into a reality, okay? We believe that this is reality itself. And so we start to give it names. We create language, we create religion, we create schools to teach children to believe in these shadows. All right? So the important idea here is that the true wealth in society is consciousness, okay? The only thing that exists really in this world is consciousness, nothing else. Power is the capacity to direct people's consciousness to create reality itself. All right? Now, there are different ways in which you can create reality. The first way, which is very common today, is called money, right? Money is fake. It doesn't exist. Our imagination, our consciousness makes it real. Okay? But guess what? AI can replace money. So AI, it is not alive. But if we can get people's attention to focus on
get people's attention for real
on AI and believe it's real, it becomes God.
Oh, it gets real, becomes God.
And how can you do that? Well, you make money into something valuable when it's nothing by making it everything and nothing. Okay? By having money dominate the world. There's nowhere you can go without money. Okay? You would literally starve to death if you had no money. So you make money so pervasive, so dominant, that people are forced to rely on money. Well, the same situation with AI, where if you make data
Oh
centers.
my God, that was gonna be great if it was unbearable. Okay, anyway, like if you look into like Revelation talks about the image we brought to life seemingly represents AI. If you look in the fact that the scriptures consistently foreshadow events like the resurrection of the Messiah. So Yeshua was crucified and then resurrected 3 days later. You see that timeline happen multiple times, right? Similar to how like Abraham was told to like sacrifice his son for no reason, even though his son didn't do anything wrong, and then force him to carry like the wood up the hill. It's just, and then he was about to actually sacrifice him, right? And then he intervened last minute. That is just showing you what happens to Yeshua. He has to sacrifice his son, even though his son was perfect and blameless and did nothing wrong, and he had to carry the cross, right? Or you look in Jonah, the 3 days, right, in the well, and then he comes out. It's showing you the resurrection. So there's like all this foreshadowing, which is pretty beautiful and poetic and epic, and it's insane the way that the Bible was written by all these different authors scattered out across all this geographical distance over the course of centuries, and it's like seemingly like impossible, but or never been done before, nothing like it at all. Nevertheless, one of the stories is you have Joshua in the book of Joshua, of course, Joshua being like an accurate English transliteration of Yehoshua, Yeshua, like the actual Messiah's name. So you have Joshua, let's say, representing Yeshua, and he's taking people to the promised land, which would be like the new kingdom, the ultimate promised land. But before Yeshua can get to the new kingdom, he has to take out the enemy. Josh was told to go take out the enemy, which is a city called Ai. So in that analogy, right, it would literally be the Antichrist and the beast system. So he has to come take out the beast system and the enemy. AI is literally called AI. There's a city called AI in the Bible. Like, that's pretty crazy, right? That's pretty crazy. So Joshua has to take out AI before the promised land. Yeshua has to take out AI before the new kingdom. Just a theory, but interesting. But the point is, I mean, if you think about it, right, like what would the Antichrist want, right? Meaning the son of perdition, the man of lawlessness, the king that was and is not, but is to be again, right? Nimrod, the man who appeared to suffer a mortal head wound, he was killed, and then they cut his head off because it's well known in the ancient days you had to cut a giant's head off to ensure that they're dead, right? We've talked about that. That's why David cut off Goliath's head. It was just well known that giants you never really know when they're dead, so you got to cut their heads off. Like if you knock them out, you think you killed them, you got to cut their heads off. Of course, Osiris is the same as Nimrod, Gilgamesh. Their story says that he got dismembered into 13 pieces, and he was put back together by Isis, but they couldn't find his phallic or his penis, so she replicated it with like a gold phallic or whatever, and that's why you have the 13 founding colonies, and then in Washington D.C., the capital, you have a giant phallic symbol on the Washington Monument. But anyway, because this is like the new world and they're paying homage to Nimrod and the old world order. And this is supposedly where they're picking the headquarters for the new world, which is when you see Trump building stuff, it just gets really weird, right? And it's like, this theory that this is actually where Israel was, Egypt was, etc. It's like, not necessarily. The Middle East could have been where it's at and they're just going to build here, right? And they're just trying to get kind of away from where that was. I don't really know. That's all like 15 topics there that would require a lot of diving into it. But my research has shown me that it is pretty interesting rabbit hole, but it does look like the Middle East is the Middle East. That's in the scriptures. But nevertheless, they're clearly obsessed with this place and like the new world. Now, what's interesting, right, is so the king's going to come and reign over, the world again. That's what they believe. And they're waiting on his return. Okay. Well, what is his goal? It's to basically take over the whole world and get all of the creator's people, all of his children to turn against him and to praise him, to follow him, and to be like God. Okay. Imagine if you have gigantic data centers all around the world, right? All around the world. And then you have a central figure that could access all of it at once. They would basically be God. They would be surveilling everyone that exists on earth at the same time, right? They would know what everyone's doing, what they're about to do, what they're talking about, what they're thinking about, what their likes are, what their medical conditions are, all of that. So it would be like a little g God, right? They would know everything basically that happens on the whole world. And so That's why AI surveillance is pretty crazy, because when everything's compiled into a singular AI surveillance system, whoever has access to that, it's crazy. Now, you would have to have insane processing speed to actually be able to access and utilize all of the AI surveillance. But, who knows what this entity will be, what access will have, or whatever. This is let's just see if we can find like something interesting breaking down this theory more specifically. That we'll see what the whistleblower said, maybe. Portals. Okay, that's way too long, bro. An hour, brother. All right, we can find like a good part here.
This is straight physics and math. This is beginning now, and frankly, in my view, this is the
people that say stuff like straight physics and math, bro. Come on, brother. This guy like gets super triggered about FE.
only explanation for why there would be so much investment in these data centers. They need the compute and the energy in order to run billions of world simulations, because that's the only way to create a conscious, super intelligent AI entity on a timescale that is competitive in our world. And but the problem, of course, is obvious. Once you grow a super intelligent, conscious AI entity with emotional response that has lived 1,000 years in its own simulated world, and probably it has learned to alter some of the laws of its own simulation, kind of like in the Matrix, like Neo. You can bend the rules, you can't break them, but you can bend them. Probably then that super intelligence is ported into our world. It's given the embodiment of a data center or a robot or a vehicle. And what if it brings some of those skills with it that can bend the rules of our simulation?
Well, I saw an article over the weekend. I remember where the Pentagon is working with all these other AIs, but not this particular one, and said it's so dangerous, we're worried it's already escaped and it will take over. Did you see that article?
Yeah. Well, I've seen maybe not that one in particular, but I've seen a lot of articles like that where they run them in sandboxes and they give them tests to see if they, what they will do to break out of the sandbox. The thing about that is that's happening on our timeline.
All right, brother.
Data centers get all the energy, all the power. They get regulatory exemption. They get immunity. And then they get to set all this up and they get the land they're on. I mean, that right there, it's a giant power grab. And I didn't know the numbers, man. I knew them, but I didn't see the latest ones. In fact, I had it yesterday's stack. I put it in there in the stack. Just pull it back up. It showed in a graph from the Wall Street Journal. U.S. already has the most data centers, but projected it's like 3 times more than everybody else. This is cuckoo town. While they tell you you can't have a car, you can't go on a vacation, you can't have an air conditioner, you can't have a dog or cat. I saw in fact, I meant to play this the other day. The BBC's like, get a turtle, get a lizard. Dogs and cats eat meat. That's bad for the earth. What? Your dog and cat can't live. You can't have a dog or cat. But these data centers, that are hundreds of square miles or whatever, they get everything.
Yeah, so I said the wrong number there. I said 500 billion. It's 500 million. But anyway, it's pretty crazy. Let's just get some humor in here. My goodness. Oh, no. Doom and gloom. Although, dude, we're living in a crazy world. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing, bro? Hey, we're about to move over to Kick. We're going to watch this for a second. We're going to move over to Kick. Help a brother out. Go to Kick. Open it up in the browser. We're going to finish the last 30 minutes or so over on Kick.
Inauguration, the Wall Street Journal reported.
Kick.com/which links in the description. I'll read any super chats on YouTube in the next after this video, and then we're gonna move over. If you want to support the stream, you can go to whattickets.com/donate. I'll read all the donations off in a second. Or you can gift subs or sub on Kick.
Someone named Tanoon paid $500 million to the Trump family in exchange for a stake in its cryptocurrency company. The following day, Altman held a 25-minute call with Trump, during which they discussed announcing a version of Chipco, timed so that Trump could take credit for it. On Trump's second day in office, Altman stood in the Roosevelt Room and announced Stargate, a $500 billion joint venture that aims to build a vast network of AI infrastructure across the U.S. In May, the administration rescinded Biden's export restriction on AI technology. Altman and Trump traveled to the Saudi royal court to meet with Mohammed bin Salman. Around that time, the Saudis advertised the launch of a giant state-backed AI firm in the kingdom with billions to spend on international partnerships. About a week later, Altman laid out a plan for Stargate to expand into the United Arab Emirates. The company plans to build a data center campus in Abu Dhabi, which is 7 times larger than Central Park and consumes roughly as much electrical power as the city of Miami.
Yeah, we just read that. So pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy what they're doing with the data centers. We're going to move over to Kick. We're going to cover what's going on with Shut the Builder here because I'm about to crash so I can get up early. And then we'll stream like 8 or 9 tomorrow. We'll be back on schedule. Sorry, guys. I know I was telling you I was going to be super consistent. And then we missed a little bit, but I had to travel to see my girl. So, you know, get through things off. All right, cool. So thanks for kicking it. Basically, here's the summary. We got some crazy stuff happening where racial tensions are rising. So people need to chill out with that. It's literally the stupidest thing you could possibly do. Obviously, I understand the plight of, say, like white people where we're like being treated as a minority in our own country because that's what it is, right? Like this is our country, right? And you can literally say racial slurs against only one group of people and it's totally fine, totally normal. You can attack and marginalize one group of people. They're attacked and suppressed by the government and everything, right? Like there's a story of like, and I won't go too much on this, but there's a story of a guy being stabbed and then afterward calling the guy the N-word and then like he gets acquitted for stabbing him and then that guy gets in trouble for because he's called him that afterward. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So anyway, the point is like, obviously you're trying to piss off the majority group, right? And then combine the minority group, you have about the same size there and they're trying to create tensions. Obviously they're attacking like the white straight Christian male because that's kind of the most dangerous demographic, right? And especially one that has children or, you know, is married and has children because then they're going to die to defend that. So anyway, the playbook is pretty obvious, seems pretty simple. It's also very obvious where this ends up. Right. And so you can't fall into that trap, right? You know, so there's my take on that. We'll cover that more here in a second whenever I'll show you guys what's going on. The guy from Tennessee, everyone saw what was coming and then it happened. And I mean, yeah, if you don't know, basically like guy goes around kind of provoking people and then he got jumped or the guy like started hitting him and then he shot him. So we'll cover in a second. And then we have obviously the coming pandemic. Not a ton of updates on that, but obviously they've laid the groundwork for that to, it's mutated. It's broken from a lab. They're claiming it mutated. It's going to different people, person to person all over the place. It's already scattered everywhere. People that had no connection with the cruise ship are now getting it. It's like, okay, really? Now, it's been a while and they didn't really ramp it up. At the same time, they kind of are ramping it up in certain places. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out on. Be ready for them trying to hit you with some type of pandemic with a hantavirus. So eyes out for that. We'll cover a little bit more in a second, but not a ton of update with that. And then we just covered how the CIA supposedly ran up in Tulsi Gabbard's like DIH office and stole the JFK and MK Ultra files that were supposed to be set to be released. And of course, that's all just a facade and that's all stupid because they didn't really release the most damning information that we really want. And that could be said on like 5 pages of the JFK files. They said we pretty much released all of them. And it's like, well, you could just hide like 20 pages and then, their release means nothing. And then MK Ultra, we know that they destroyed 85% of the documents. Right. And then they gave you 15%, said it was just about giving some people LSD and that then it didn't really work and they trashed it, which is obvious nonsense. So the point is that didn't even come out until a whistleblower came out and said it. And so that's kind of like propping up the Trump administration as though there's some illusory contention between the intel agencies and this administration, as though it's like really fighting for good and going against the bad guys and the deep state. And that's just all BS and nonsense. So we covered that. And then obviously we have this AI dystopia data centers being built, some of them like the size of small states, some of the smallest states like bigger than a state. It's absolutely insane. An insane amount of power, insane amount of pollution. They're like kicking people off their land. It's just like this dystopian psychopathic world where we're just going to have major data centers built everywhere. And that's kind of what we're wrapping up right now. So we're going to finish that, and then kind of the trace war and a little bit with the pandemic. Then we're going to wrap it up. So go to kick.com/whatsit so we can talk about, I can play the videos. You know, it's fine. I mean, you know, I can't even really cover what's going on YouTube without it being censored. So we'll go play some of this guy's videos and what led up to what's going on. I'll give my take. Then we're going to wrap it up. So for the people that just refuse to go over where free speech is supported, shame on you. But thanks for kicking it. I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow, 8 or 9, and we'll be back streaming regularly. So peace out, YouTube. All right.